Now that we reached the final weeks of the semester, I thought it would be helpful for those of you who are putting together your e-portfolio to help with your reflections. I want you to think about the learning objectives for each particular week, how the text all fit together to support you in creating the actual assignments, as well as the in-class activities, and what was the major theme that you were supposed to learn to help you with your reflections as you integrate the information from the text, the lecture, all the supplemental information to write your different reflections for each particular assignment. We first started our journey by looking at educational technology and how we chose to define it, and you did that in your introductory discussion board. And then we looked at different types of tools that we could use and different types of terms to help enhance our vocabulary with our educational technology wiki. So as you look back to try to find your own voice as far as what is educational technology, that may be a good place to start with your original definition and enhance that to include things from pen and paper all the way up to all the different things that we've discussed this semester. The next phase of our journey started with the World Wide Web, or the internet, and we looked at different ways to evaluate resources. I provided you with a rubric just to help with the discussion on how do you really evaluate resources and how do you determine whether or not resources are credible. And then you created a directed browsing activity using Trackstar. For the most part, most of you use Trackstar for this particular assignment to really target specific websites and then ask your students to address some high order thinking type of questions and or skills or something of that nature. So we really focused on how do we use the internet more responsibly as instructors in selecting resources, and then how do we integrate those resources more effectively and efficiently using activities such as directed browsing. Here we talked about intellectual property and ethics and really spent a lot of time focusing on copyright, since that's where most of the violations occur in education. We're now in the copy and paste, right-click society and generation, and really taking a pause to say, number one, that's illegal, and we need to empower ourselves as educators to make sure we know what is our rights, and also how to inform our students about their own intellectual property and then the rights of others as well. And you did so by having a discussion, and we did some journaling where you kind of told on yourself or others that you found who were in violation. And then you took the liberty to show some of your creativity and comedic humor by creating some cartoons with some animations or some cartoon strips that really help engage students talking about intellectual property and ethics, and integrated that within your curriculum. Now this is where the real fun began. We started talking about our essential questions and how we were going to create a theme for all the other material that we built for the rest of the semester, and how we're going to support this theme with our specific learning objectives. And you were introduced to the ABCD model, and that was the first thing that we really did. And then we looked into a way to effectively integrate educational technology into the curriculum by way of the Assure model. And for the first Assure model, you created lesson plans using software that you're familiar with, Microsoft Word and Excel, but did so in a more meaningful way than just having students create a report, but really use these particular software as a tool to help enhance their learning by creating activities for them to specifically address your essential question. Next, we decided to keep the Assure model, but this time integrate two different aspects of the Microsoft Office suite and look at presentation software, namely Microsoft PowerPoint, and desktop publishing software, namely Publisher. But were allowed to use other software that were similar that allowed you to do those same types of things, and you focused on creating an interactive game with your presentation software, and use a variety of different types of desktop publishing types of activities for your students, again, to address your essential question. In addition to this, we were also introduced to Prezi, which is a different way of doing your lectures. Instead of having you create a presentation using PowerPoint, which is something that most of you have done, I decided to allow you just to do a brief Prezi to kind of wet your whistle about different options you have to present material as a way for you to present your essential questions or some type of supplemental information that would help support everything that you were building this semester. By this time, we needed to take a break from the Assure lesson plans and just kind of see where we were going with this whole educational technology effective integration thing. And you provided some feedback via the midterm evaluation survey, and we met one-on-one using the different collaborative tools that are available to us, Skype, and most of you use the tools that are available via your Mox Mail account, which is Gmail based. So you have your Google Chat, Google Hangout, and I did this to kind of open up the dialogue to let you know that those tools were available so we could use them, and then also you collectively could use them as you were working on your special topics group. Here we started with software integration, where you looked at the 5 different types of software that were introduced in the textbook, and you chose 3 out of those categories to find as supplemental resources to support your essential questions. You evaluated that software using the provided rubric, and in your report you determined which out of the software that you evaluated was the most appropriate for adoption. Some of you just evaluated one, others of you evaluated more than one because you felt that the combination of those 3 different types of software were the best fit as a supplemental resource for your learners. Next, we looked at the hardware. Many of you are not teachers, or some of you are teachers and know that in your classroom you only have one computer and no computers. So for you to do effective technology integration, you actually need more tools. So you created a grant application that basically justified the why and how you would use these particular tools to help support you as a teacher as well as a learner as well, and prepare them for what 21st century teaching and learning really looks like. For this part of the journey, we looked at online learning and then instructional design as well. We had some guest speakers. I gave a lecture using Blackboard Collaborate for my face-to-face course to allow you to see the different types of way you can do online learning. Asynchronous, which is what is typically done at UTC, and then the synchronous learning where everybody's there real time. You could see video from the students and everybody could chat and talk real time as well. And then you created your own course using course sites and Blackboard, which is the free version of Blackboard Learn. And then I allowed you to evaluate this course with respect to instructional design best practices to see what was done well and then what were the opportunity areas for this course. Next, I introduce you to the concept of universal design for learning and tried to have you compare and contrast this to the Assure model. I choose a blended approach of UDL and Assure, and no, I don't write down every little step of the Assure model, but I keep in the back of my mind the same thing with UDL. I really try to think of different ways that I can effectively integrate universal design for learning to ensure that all of my learners are able to have multiple means of expression, for example, in choosing how they represent their knowledge and the different assignments that I create. Our first special topic was classroom management, specifically on how to manage classrooms that use educational technology or computer labs and the different formations that many of you will experience with one computer, small classroom labs, and different ways that we could manage different classrooms. Some of the groups chose to have scenario bases where we acted out different things and we all kind of helped each other out to determine what are the best ways to deal with different types of students with respect to classroom management. In the online course, we looked at classroom management in general and then different tips and tricks we could use with respect to technology. So there were 2 different takes, but in the end, we all should have a nice set of tools that we could use and reference with respect to classroom management with and without technology. Next, we looked at mobile educational learning and mobile apps and different ways that we could use the technology that many schools are starting to provide via iPads and different tablets, and also recognizing that most of our students, or not most, but many of our students, depending on which school or school district we teach in, already have access to these types of different technologies, and how can we integrate different apps, create our own iBooks to help enhance and supplement learning. This special topic was on interactive whiteboards, smartboards, Promethean boards, whatever term you want to refer to them. And we looked at the pros and cons of just purchasing them. They are quite costly, and are school districts getting the most bang for their buck? Are teachers really using them well? Do they have the proper training and support? And the different options that you can use with them. What is the advantage of actually having an interactive whiteboard over just having a traditional whiteboard? And we weighed those different pros and cons. Some of you were able to interact with an interactive whiteboard if you were in the face-to-face class. The online course also had the ability to see a teacher to use the interactive whiteboard in their video. So we were able to explore how they could be used, and you were able to identify, if you had one, these are different types of things I could do with it in my classroom. The last special topic was using data to inform teaching and learning, and we looked at how data can be used to help us learn more about the learners in general, learn about their prior knowledge so we can help customize our lessons to better engage our students, to meet them at where they are, and to provide the proper scaffolds to bring them where they need to be. And it also helps us inform about our teaching, to see how we have grown as teachers, to see our students came in at this point, and then when they left, they came in at that point. But we also realized how data is being used for education in general, and how that could be a little troublesome for all of us. Our students are not widgets. They come with a lot of variables that are hard to attribute just to one data point. So although data is very useful in education, we try not to let it get us depressed on how it is being used. But we as educators know how to use the data to help inform our teaching to help enhance student learning. For the final assignment for the semester, which is due this Friday, is your screen technology tutorials. In a previous slide, I mentioned that you evaluated different software. So for some of you, you're going to take one of those softwares and you're going to provide some type of tutorial for your students to use that software in a manner that will help them, again, focus on that essential question. So for some students, they found that actually creating the PDF tutorial was most helpful because it serves as a script for the screen capture. And you could use software similar to this, Adobe Captivate, as well as Camtasia, or the freeware that's offered. Jing is one of those that is an option for you. And so this is going to serve as a tutorial for your students, and then your lesson plan will clearly show that this particular software supports your EQ, and this is how you want your students to use the software. Now we've reached the final project, which is your e-portfolio, where you're going to synthesize everything that we've learned from using clickers or student response systems in the form of Poll Everywhere, which students could use their cell phones or even tweet their responses. And you created 2 high-order thinking questions, and we talked about different pedagogical strategies you could use with clickers, be it think, pair, share, and different ways that we could use whatever technology you may have available, if it's a traditional clicker or if you wanted to use clickers but didn't and you felt comfortable allowing your students to use cell phones. These are different ways that you can do that. And we also learned about some classroom management techniques that we could use if we allowed students to use their own devices. And we also looked at some relevant journals that spoke to you, your discipline, your grade level, on how you can effectively integrate educational technology to enhance learning in a more specific way for your needs and your interests. So in your e-portfolio, I'm really looking at your reflections, how you integrated the lecture, the text, and any other supplemental resources into your reflections to help you define your own voice on educational technology. I have my own philosophy, but from your e-portfolio, it should be clear what your philosophy is on educational technology. And then I'm also going to be evaluating your ability to technically develop this web page and how you do things like insert files into Google Drive, which we refer to also as the cloud, and then also insert those files into Google Sites. So I want to make sure everything is in there properly. Now, I will put this as an asterisk. When the files are converted from Word to Google Docs, some of the formatting is changed. I don't want you to spend a moment on changing the formatting. I know that happens, so just insert, and what it looks like is what it looks like, and I am comfortable with that. For those of you who are a little bit more anal, if you choose to spend time on that, do that after you have developed everything and your e-portfolio is actually ready for submission. And if you want to go back with a finer tooth comb to make those changes, you can, but I'm not going to penalize you because of how things were converted technically. I'm also going to be looking for the way in which you order things. I provided some tutorials on how to move pages. I'm available to help you with that. So if you're still struggling with how to navigate with your navigation bar, making sure links show up properly, those are the different types of things that I'm expecting. It's not going to be a heavy penalty if you don't do those things, but know that I'm a resource. I'm just a Google Chat, Google Hangout, or Skype away if you need that type of support. I'm not going to go back and regrade your lesson plans like Assure. I'm really just looking to make sure you can insert them. You do have until Friday at 11:59 p.m. to revise and resubmit things that you didn't submit during the semester. But at 11:59 p.m. on Friday, the only thing you'll be able to submit in this class is this e-portfolio. So make sure you use your time wisely. We've reached the end of the semester and the course, and I hope you enjoyed your journey learning more about educational technology.